Yes. Be up in a
Oh, I
minute.
should put it on my Facebook so people could see how terrible I look, right?
Just share that YouTube link.
Yeah.
We're on.
Oh, we are on. Okay, good. All right. Well, listen, welcome to another very special and unique, every green room special, but another unique green room. You can see Ruta in the Zoom there. And listen, we're separated again today. Hi, Ruta.
Hi.
So we always talk in the green room about how each week brings its own special flavor. And of course, last week we were separated. I was in my office and you were in the studio, we call it, which is funny, just another room in the clinic. But no, and you were back here because I was exposed to COVID from Patty, who's back to normal. Fortunately, she got off the cruise ship with COVID. And, listen, I, knock on wood, 34-year emergency, medicine physician that I am, somehow float around in this bubble of immunity. I don't quite understand it.
Really, you do.
Right.
Meanwhile, me, I'm like the magnet of any disease. Come bring it on.
Whereas you would be the mistress of influenza. In this case, type A influenza, right? Confirmed by your doctor, and you tell me the story. But we sat here, last week and discussed what we discussed. Paul Pelosi hadn't yet been hit in the head with a hammer, which seems to be an obvious story in anybody's world, right? But no, we'll get back to that in a moment. But anyway, so you got sick over the weekend, and
well, I thought I had COVID because I'm such the COVID queen too. So I figured I started like getting raspy, and all of a sudden the fever shot up, and I'm like, oh God, it felt like the vice, and your head's in a vice, and the cough came right into my chest, and I'm like, here we go, it's COVID. And so I took a at-home PCR test. It was negative, but I called my doctor and she's like, run to get a regular PCR because sometimes it doesn't show. And then by that time, my fever was spiking at like 103. And so she was kind of like, well, I don't think it's COVID just because the fever was so high. And so she called me into her office. So I went in there. So she gave me a COVID test and a flu test. And okay, so for everybody who wants to get the flu test, let's just give a little prep here. So you think the COVID test initially, remember when you first went to that COVID testing site and they threw the thing like right into your brain and jiggled it for like 5 minutes? Well, they do that now with the flu. So with the flu one, the COVID one is a little bit less intensive. The flu one goes right up into like your brain cells, wipes it down and gets it out. So
right, a thin wire.
Yes, it's crazy.
And they get it up in there pretty good. And
they way up.
Type A, type B influenza. That's what you're supposed to get the flu shot for, of course, everybody.
Yes, everyone should get them. At CVS and Walgreens, they're really good about giving away free flu shots. So please go get them because it's not worth getting the flu. It really is not. And my anticipation, because we're doing the free clinic down in Fort Myers on Saturday, I figured I'll go this week to get the flu shot. So I wouldn't get the flu going in and down there because of exposure to so many people. I ended up getting it anyway.
Yeah, well, listen, I salute you for being on with us in the green room this morning because I know you know how important this specific green room is. And listen, the Tripledemic, of course, and you're right now just witness to one of the three prongs of what is called the Tripledemic, the three viruses, right? Which would be, of course, COVID, which still exists. And listen,
Doctor, just so you know, Dr. Ald, our southern office, she's down with COVID.
Yeah, I heard. Yep.
Yeah. So
right. So the point is COVID's still around, and because of my exposure to Patty, who's, like I said, is back to normal, but she had like 65 people get off of her Norwegian cruise ship with COVID. They had a little Facebook group and everything, so they were kind of following and back and forth. And Norwegian doesn't require any testing or proof of vaccination anymore to get on their ship. So it almost seems like a recipe for disaster. But my point is, on the first part of the Tripledemic, that's not yet over. And listen, there are still deaths from COVID at a pretty, it's almost like the politics itself. We've almost become immune to certain things. And I think a continuation of COVID and the impact and some deaths and, morbidity that it's still causing long-term complications, long haul COVID. So it's something to still pay attention to. We did what we call code yellow in the clinic, which means we saw our patients, every single one in person, but outside. And, listen, we're still fortunate to have telehealth available per the state. And that's the, aspect, once again, recovering from Ian. And listen, you saw on my Facebook page that I said quadrademic, right, which is 4. So the first 3 are COVID, influenza, which here's Ruta, and she's got it. And then RSV, which is a very common childhood virus that causes, especially in very young infants, they can have respiratory distress and they have to go to the pediatric ICU for a couple of days. Most recover well. And of course, immunocompromised people. But those are the 3 viruses, right, that we talk about. There's no immunization for RSV, although they're talking about it. But it's interesting how RSV came up so vividly in the population now is because kids have all been isolated for so long.
Oh, they have no immunity.
Right. So that immunity wasn't kind of built up and set up. So those are the 3 viruses, right, that are causing, obviously hospitals to be overflowed, especially pediatric hospitals. Quadrademic, the 4th virus, and I know, Ruta, why you are with us today. And listen, we got to talk about the quintodemic aspect, which is Ian recovery down here. And we will, before we get off, remind everybody about what we're doing on Saturday. I want to talk a little bit about my experience on Friday when I went down to meet the unbelievable angel on earth, okay, Mama Lou, and you set me up for it, Ruta. And of course, we had her in the green room last week. But when you meet her in person and you see the operation that she has, Don, I don't know if you can put up her PayPal app if we have it somewhere.
Honestly, that woman is a one-man.
No, seriously, what she does down there.
She doesn't stop, and the woman is incredible. She doesn't take a salary. She's there every day. She's dedicated.
She's got Mama Lou, Papa Juan, and her crew. And, they do what they do down there. And she took me to some areas, quite frankly, that were just so strikingly affected, by the storm and meeting the people who were out there, attempting to survive and, literally had little to begin with. And of course, it been completely wiped out. So, that would be the 5th part viral wise. But the 4th is so critical right now, Ruta, because like I said, after we had our green room last week, who knows what the news cycle is going to bring. So while I'm driving down, to North Fort Myers last weekend and, to see what's going on down there, I hear the news of the attack, on Speaker Pelosi's husband. And, you think it's such a straightforward thing, and how everybody, I don't know who I don't know. You attempt to explain to me, Ruta, where we are in a society that we have the virus of misinformation. Okay, the 4th, and now we're creeping into a midterm election. Okay, on Tuesday, many people have voted already, including myself. And now we see further things happening. And President Biden, of course, gave a speech last night about the preservation of our democratic process, which to me is so obvious in this election, So I'll be honest with you. I'm like a cat on a hot tin roof right now because I'm a student of history. And if you look at history and you look at Germany in the 30s, you know that Hitler was defeated. He went away for a bit and then he came back. Yeah. So you have to look at the repetition and it's fascism is violence. It's intimidation. It's intimidation at the local level. It's intimidation at the polling workers level. Okay. It's intimidation from everywhere. And we need to see it for what it is. I read an unbelievable, I think I saw it actually on, and Twitter's a mess now, of course, right?
Of course.
But the Reverend who spoke about the candidacy of Herschel Walker, okay, in Georgia as being just another manifestation of the white man leading, okay, a black candidate, okay, and presenting him, when you have another candidate in Reverend Warnock, who's worked for the people his entire life. He's a minister.
He's a minister. And so this is the other thing that's so
I just don't get it.
Hypocrite. I don't either. Or all these people who are like, oh, we're so religious, we're so this. And then you have a man who really is dedicated to the poor and helping people his whole life. Well, now he's not what they want. So it's like, really? So what do you want? The guy that's crooked as can be, who can't, it's just, it gets
Or
so
Dr. Oz, who made
Another
his money
one.
by selling literally snake oil, everybody.
Yes.
Diet pills that were garbage, that
Garbage.
didn't work, okay, that never worked, okay, seriously. And listen, can President Obama run again? Is he barred from running again? I don't think he
No,
is.
actually, Obama can run again.
When you serve 2 terms, and you can come back, right? It's a
Yeah,
matter
he
of
can come
consecutive
back.
terms, right?
Yeah, he can come back.
Listen, if it ever gets to that, and a lot of people think that he started the division, which of course, in my opinion, continues to be racism.
It's racism.
Okay,
That's
continuing
all.
to rear its head in America. Okay, you can talk the issue of crime. Okay, it's funny how they talk about crime.
Yeah, somehow it's not, it disappears
Wants
under them.
crime.
I don't know. Mhm.
And why is there crime? Well, there's a lot of reasons that there's crime, but one of the reasons that there's crime is the absolute disparity, okay, economically in society, which is unfortunate and festers, okay, and there's so many other reasons as well, but you can't say that there's not too many guns on the street, okay? We need
But
funding.
the economic disparity, but the point of economic disparity that you talk about, it's so important, because the people who vote for this racism and for this ignorance and for the lying and the cheating are the poor people of America. And the ones that they're supporting are like the Trumps, who are in the top 2%. And so those top 2%ers are not the ones who care about them, and yet they're still voting for them. And the fact that somebody like Trump can so manipulate everybody that's not him to think that he's one of them is still mind-boggling to this day to me. How?
Listen, he's a master at what he's a master at. But look at the rise of anti-Semitism, okay? Also, what happened this past weekend at the football games, okay, and the whole Kanye and Kyrie Irving, and these things should be gone in society in 2022. How could they be worse? I'll be honest with you, I'm like a cat on a hot tin roof coming up to these elections on Tuesday, because in my humble opinion, at age 66, and I like to think I've had a pretty global worldly outlook in my world in the emergency medicine biz, and just trying to be a good global citizen, okay? We need to focus right now on where we want this country to be 10 years from now, for Don's kids, for my grandchildren, for young people. That's what really concerns me about this. You have to look at what may happen and how long it's going to take to unravel what may happen. And I just continue to believe that it's the browning of the country, okay? Where our immigrants are coming from. Is this the land of opportunity for all, okay? Or is the vision of America where there may be a white minority somehow, and if you just look at stats, and it just scares some people so much.
It scares them so much.
They don't want to be integrative, to be what this country was set up to be: land of the free, home of the brave. Bring me your wheat. Just it fascinates me that this country is big enough for everybody, and we need everybody now in the workforce. That's the thing about it.
We don't even have a workforce. That's the problem. We don't. We're short of a workforce. So who are going to be the roofers in this country? We don't have tradesmen. We don't. But there's such a shortage. It goes to prove right now in Fort Myers to here. If you want to get your roof done, it's going to be 8 months. There's nobody to do the roofing. You want aluminum. It's between supply and demand and workers. We don't have anybody. It's crazy.
Listen, the recovery efforts down here, and once again, just getting, to the fifth aspect of what's going on. Listen, there's been a lot done, which is fantastic. And, we have to give credit to whatever authorities, have, been accountable for getting power back up and the causeways up, but there's still such a need. I'm telling you, Ruta, when Mama Lou took me into some of the neighborhoods last week, and I know you prepped me for this, but there's really no prepping for it.
No, you have to see it with your own
And I
eyes.
know a lot of people down here know the area, but those from up north may not. But when you get down into the North Fort Myers area, right around Pine Island Road and the SNET, there's literally just a lot of communities, manufactured, home communities, some very, very lovely, filled with seniors, retirees, others not quite as lovely, right? That, have migrant farm workers and but they're all exposed, right, to the elements, and it's Mother Nature, okay, that ultimately wins here. And once again, just another fascination of the misinformation and the non-acceptance of global warming and other such things, climate change, from whatever belief that you come or reason that you believe that it's changing. It'll be very interesting to see, as we rebuild, right, what the codes are going to be, if people are required to build up, literally building at sea level, will work. And, it was dangerous,
And building on the barrier islands, because those barrier islands, whether you like it or not, I mean, they're dangerous to live on. A storm comes through and you see the devastation. So I wonder, are insurance companies going to say, okay, go build on a barrier island, but we're not going to insure you? Then to your risk if you lose your house, because I mean, you're taking a chance and you're isolated should a hurricane come. And again, are people going to be okay with rebuilding? I don't know. There's a lot of questions, I think, coming
No,
up.
and this will be a months, years long process. And, just kind of pulling the green room into the cannabis space for a moment. I do want to give credit to the state for allowing the telehealth, for the 20 counties in the state until November 30th. And listen, our patients love it. Our patients have always loved telehealth for recertifications. As everybody knows, I've never been in favor of telehealth for initial patients. My belief is patients need to come into the office, get the initial education, establish a relationship with the doctor and his office, okay, to legitimate. I know what everybody knows what I'm trying to say. To make the program legitimate. And I continue to believe that. But there's an emergency in our practice every single day. There's a patient undergoing chemotherapy, perhaps, that doesn't want to have to come into the office. There's a patient who may miss another appointment if they do ours, once again, chemotherapy or otherwise. People may have two cars regularly, but one of the cars may be out from the storm. They may not get another car back for a number of months, right? I can list 50 different circumstances why for patient access, not just during this critical phase, but every day for the medical cannabis patient. So my hope is, and once again, I'm gratified that the state is giving us the capability at this particular point in time until the 30th of November. But the emergency is not going to go away. Surely not on this coast before November 30th. So hopefully this will be extended. My hope is that it will be a small opening of the door that we can jam our foot squarely in. And perhaps if we stay narrowly focused in this upcoming legislative season, we can achieve telehealth for our recertification patients. It's also up to the doctor offices, okay, and the business practices about the state, okay, to follow the rules, please, okay?
Yeah, just follow
and
the
let's
rules.
not be abusing it, okay, and putting patients new to the system, okay, in via telehealth.
No, because you get the variables
in the way of common sense.
No, because this is the only problem with telehealth, and I think it led to the Varahills of Florida to come in. And I think if it's written wisely and the state monitors it, I don't see why it would be an issue. It just has to be written well. And I think now the legislators too, I think it's the job of like citizens, like especially in the counties now that we're affected even more so, to write to their legislators and say, like, we appreciate that there's telehealth, because we didn't have cars, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have access, we couldn't get somewhere, the roads were blocked, and they were stressing out, and their PTSD and their stress and their anxieties through the roof. Never mind as pain, like just the whole thing. And it's really, I think they need to speak out in droves and say, like, look, we need this.
I just think with the, this being election season and everything, it's just been a very quiet advocate world, in a lot of ways. And listen, post-election, we'll see how things shake out. There's going to be the legal adult use campaign, Smart and Safe Florida, that of course Truly has already put $10 million into. And there's also going to be a home grow initiative also. that's going to be much less monetized, so to speak, less support from the industry, but has a lot of support amongst the advocates and everything. So
Well,
we'll see how it goes.
I think the big thing is, I think everybody that's listening right now, especially for governor, I know a lot of people love DeSantis. He's not pro cannabis. So for our listeners that are, in the program, think about who you vote for, because if you have restrictions, they're coming from the governor's office. He's not pro cannabis. And so if you're looking for less restrictions, you got to go the other way.
It's interesting. If you look at the if you look at the ag race, it's Aramis Ayala, who I think probably most people, this is probably the first time they've ever heard that name.
Yeah.
Versus Wilton Simpson, who's very well known, was president of the Senate, and he's a farmer. He's reminded everybody on his commercials. It's interesting on his commercials that he never mentions consumer services, right?
Yeah.
So as most people know, it's Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. So let's talk about DeSantis for a second. So people love him, and I don't quite understand why. But what does he stand for? He stands for wanting to control really a lot of aspects of people's lives.
I think people really
based upon how he sees the world.
How he sees the world, yes.
And what's important to him is that a girl shouldn't have to compete against a guy on the swim team or something who's going through a sex change. He tends to pull out those cultural issues.
Yeah.
when he did the debate with Charlie Crist, and they talked about late term abortion. Okay.
Mm.
So nobody wants late term abortion. Okay.
No, nobody does.
But Charlie didn't sign a bill that would allow anybody to dismember a baby as they take the baby out of the womb. Okay. In month 9. Okay. So that's the type of stuff that just makes me crazy. Okay. Yeah. But DeSantis, listen, he wants to control what goes on in schools.
Everywhere.
Carlos Garamo Smith is involved in a 1-point race, Ruta, in Orlando, because they rewrote the district.
Of course, they gerrymandered him. Yeah,
they did. They rewrote, as is Andrew Learned. Okay, those bastions of what we like to think are of progressive thought. Okay, we may have a super majority. Okay, Republican leadership. Okay, in Tallahassee that'll be able to push through anything
they want.
Okay. And listen, can you imagine? Okay, women in Florida,
women's rights. Women better wake up on this one.
To go and get legal reproductive care in another state. And listen, they can make that illegal too. That if you leave the state, okay, and it's unbelievable. And once again, it's just this is a secular society. It's not a theocracy.
We're becoming more and more of a theocracy. And that's something that I think we need to discuss that at some point on another green room too, because it really is becoming a theocracy in this country. It really, unless you're a Christian, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, they're not a fan of you. No matter what other belief you have, and our system was divided that we do not get ruled by the church, and yet here we are.
For a very good reason too, But and listen, the ability to raise your family the way that you see fit, and the way that's what America is all about. But the imposition of your beliefs on others is not.
It's not.
And I texted Nikki Fried yesterday, our dear friend, and I wished her safety. Being out there right now as a public figure who is openly Jewish and speaking about anti-Semitism, and it's just a very dangerous world right now in an era of 2022 where it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be. We as a society should have advanced, okay, so far past, okay, worrying about the color of somebody's skin or where they were raised,
their religion, any of that, anything.
And I
We
don't know
are, we
which,
should
I don't
be.
know which Republican it was, somebody saying that Obama should go back to where he came from or something like that.
Oh,
you know?
remember that? Like, I mean, the people's comments and like you said, Marco Rubio's ads versus Val Demings.
Oh.
I mean, they're just despicable. And you know, like it's time to really this country, I just don't get it. Unless it's fear mongering and what are we supposed to be afraid of everybody that's not like us? And
Listen, John McCain, may he rest in peace. To me, we need him back so badly right now to grab the microphone from that lady who said that Obama was this and that. And he grabbed that microphone and said, ma'am, stop it. He's an American. He's a good man. He's a family man. He's a patriot. Okay. And I don't know who could do that right now in the Republican Party.
There is
Except for
nobody.
one
The
person
Republicans,
himself that, quite frankly, listen, the lack of leadership from our TFG, that former guy, okay, now, quite frankly, is to the point of criminality, in my humble opinion. I mean, how much more damage, okay, can one person do by not standing up and saying, listen, I got it. It's kind of all my fault. Sorry. Kind of just give me another $500 million. Maybe I'll just go away.
That's what people would just wish. I wish it would just go away. I think most Americans want to just go away.
The Republican Party, quite frankly, Ruta, also wants them to go away. And I do. And you know, it's funny because when you put out your text this morning at 4 or whatever time it was, you know, about SNN coming down to be in the office, you know, seriously, I was awake. Why was I awake? I have no idea. But when I'm awake,
why was I awake? No idea.
Well, you were sick, you know. You have, you know. My point is, when I'm awake at night, those are the things that I get concerned about. Okay, it's just the fact that society moves so fast now with information that is not vetted, and it's not.
No, it's misinformation.
It's garbage. Okay,
the age of misinformation is frightening.
And to hear Trump yesterday somehow on the radio or the day before saying about the glass was broken from the inside out and this and that, they try to present whatever narrative they want, and it's dangerous. It's Orwellian. It is, but you hear people agreeing with him all the time and taking his side, and those conspiracy theorists. My God, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And you know, hopefully, there's a silent majority, and I do believe that there is. I believe this is really a choice between conventional life, calmness, what we've all kind of known as America, and utter chaos. Okay.
I don't know, like people are criticizing Joe Biden, but I have to say, in these, like the last couple of years, I feel much more comfortable. Like I don't feel so stressed out as when the orange guy was sitting there, because I felt like we were always like on edge that we could go to a nuclear attack or with Korea any moment because of Trump, like, you know, and I feel so much more at ease right now that somebody at least rational is behind that button.
Well, no, that's what I think the silent majority appreciates, the conventionalism of Joe Biden. Okay. It's not normal, okay, for the last president not to go to the inauguration, okay? It's not normal for the last president, when the current president and the current governor are in Florida, his home state, not to be able to stand with those two in a time of disaster. It's not normal for that person to come out and say, if any of my supporters, okay, are thinking of any violence against anybody in this country, stand down.
Stand down.
And the very fact that he doesn't do this, okay, magnifies it. It allows it. This has always existed. You know, what about Steve Scalise, and I got it, and what about Justice Kavanaugh, and I got it. Violence has no place. But damn it, let's not deny, okay, where the root of it is, okay? There was a core that's now been let out. Pandora's box was opened by this grifter, by this liar, okay? And I'm telling you, I do believe that it's going to be the documents case, okay? They just came out. They gave one of them immunity. I forget, is it?
Ari.
Yep. So, right, somebody got the immunity. So believe me, I think it's going to be this documents case, quite frankly, that even Trump can't wrangle out of.
Hopefully he can't wrangle, because that guy a worm.
It's
He really
just, I mean,
is. Really is
listen,
a
and
worm.
I don't know. That to me is just the entire most obvious, most ridiculous aspect of it. When you look at the senators, the Republican senators, the congressmen and women, okay, on the Republican side, that can't look at a camera and say that that's wrong. Nobody takes these documents, okay? I can't do it.
Nobody.
You can't do it. My staff can't do it, okay? Biden can't do it, okay? And somehow what? Trump's allowed to just kind of, giggle off it, into the
He
Mar-a-Lago.
does. And like, this is the thing, like even listening to when the testimony about, the testimony of the January 6th hearings, like when you listen to those, these people all were like, this has never happened. This is not what we do. This isn't how it happens. Like everybody was saying it inside and keeping it inside. The fact that, okay, now they're finally letting it out, but inherently, come on, every single American knows this is freaking wrong and it's never happened and it should never happen again. I mean, come on.
It has never happened. It should never happen again. Tim Ryan, who I support and financially supported in Ohio, because, listen, Ohio's a funny state. They brought in this J.D. Vance, okay, who basically was Peter Thiel's venture capital guy, the Herschel Walker of Ohio, so to speak. But he didn't play running back for Ohio State, okay? So, listen, I think Tim Ryan's got a great chance. But he went on Fox News, and he did a town hall with J.D. Vance on Fox News. Very interesting. And he was booed initially when he talked about the officer that died, okay, as a result of January 6th, okay, of course, Brian Sicknick, he was booed because of that, because that crowd doesn't accept the fact that it was what it was, and it was actually the vicious attack on law enforcement that it was.
Honestly,
by the end of it though, they cheered when he said that this should never happen in America. And he turned the crowd. So, it was interesting, and you had to be honest, you had to be upfront, and you had to just smack it right in the face that this is America. When you lose, you lose. Listen, my Indians lost, my Browns finally won, but they're going to lose. Okay, when you lose, you accept it. It's going to be so interesting to see, okay, what happens, okay, on Wednesday morning. And, it's going to be interesting too, Ruta, and here's my prediction. We're not going to know on Wednesday morning who's going to control the Senate, because Georgia has got the 3% libertarian candidate, right? They're not going to get to 50 point whatever percent. I don't think Reverend Warnock or the running back from Georgia. That's what we should start calling it, by the way. It's like that school up north, Ohio Staters don't talk about that school up north, right? That school up north. But we really should, even call, Herschel. He should just be that running back from Georgia. But seriously, I don't think we're going to know on Wednesday morning. Really,
but for our listeners, if you haven't voted, please go vote. I mean, every vote counts. Please go vote. I know we're running out of time because
we are, but Ruta, a big shout out for Saturday. Give the details.
So for everybody listening, thank you all for donating what you've donated. For the volunteers that have come through, we're going to be meeting. I'm going to just give a general message. We'll be meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning in the location. I'll be there earlier. For medical staff personnel, I'm asking everybody to wear scrubs, sneakers, be comfortable. For non-medical personnel, wear sneakers and something comfortable. We're going to be working. It's a long day. We're going to be helping, check people in, move people through the lines. There'll be food distribution at the end of the lines. We have right now at count, we have 12 physicians coming in. We have 4 nurse practitioners and we have 6 RNs. So we have a good team coming in. We have a pharmacy dispensing on location. So everybody that's coming down, please, be safe driving down. Be expected to get moved by what you see and who you're going to see and treat. And, we were humbled when we went to Immokalee, which is about 6 years ago, when we went down to the migrant workers and we were there for the day. It was a little tougher conditions there. There was no AC, no electric, and we were in 98% humidity and 98 degrees treating patients. This is a little bit nicer. We have air conditioning, but like I said, you're going to be humbled by what you see, and it's so rewarding. And I thank all the physicians, Dr. Gordon, yourself included. Thank you guys. It's going to be yeoman's work that day. And you guys will do amazing. And I can't wait to see what happens on Saturday, but we'll treat a lot of people that need it.
And listen, so appreciative, Ruta, of your leadership in this matter. And, it just enough said. So, I've been aching to do something from day one. And when people get down there, they'll understand, the needs.
They will.
So, yep.
They will. I think as soon as people drive down and they take a look, I think they'll understand why we're there. So anyways, shout out to everyone again. It's the UCC clinic. It's going to be at 2901.
You stay in bed till Saturday morning. And
Well, I don't have, I'll be out tomorrow because I got to.
That's all right. We know it. But yeah, everybody listen. Thanks for joining the green room. As you see, Ruta is going to be busy, and we'll see you next week.